Imagine, a man dies, his family gathers to mourn him, and after some time, the widow faces a question that sounds almost unthinkable to an outsider. Should she marry her deceased husband's brother? In Somalia, this custom is known as dumal. It is explained as a way to care for children, preserve property, and fulfill clan obligations. But where does support end and pressure on the woman begin? And this is only the first paradox of the country. Off the coast of Somalia, huge ships were once seized and multi-million-dollar ransoms demanded, while on the streets of Mogadishu today, even a small purchase is often paid for via mobile phone. Here, ancient customary law coexists with digital money. A camel remains a measure of wealth, and the sea, which could feed millions of people, has simultaneously become a symbol of danger. Today, we will examine how Somalia actually lives. Why a clan can sometimes offer a person stronger protection than a state institution. Who got the pirates' money? What marriage to a deceased husband's relative means. Why the capital does not resemble an endless battle zone. And whether it is even possible to travel to a country that official advisories still call one of the most dangerous destinations in the world. And in the finale, we will return to the main question. Is dumal a way to leave the widow alone, or a tradition that can deprive her of the right to decide her own fate? The answer will turn out to be more complex and unpleasant than any simple sensational headline. First, we need to understand what country we are talking about. On the map, Somalia looks like a long projection on the east coast of Africa, facing the Arabian Peninsula and the Indian Ocean. This area is called the Horn of Africa. Routes linking the Suez Canal, the Red Sea, the Persian Gulf, Eastern Africa, and Asia pass through the waters nearby. Therefore, Somalia has never been a forgotten corner of the world. On the contrary, its coastline has been located for centuries alongside one of the planet's most important maritime roads. In the World Bank database, Somalia's population in 2025 was estimated at approximately 19.7 million people. But any neat figure here conceals a complex reality. The federal government is located in Mogadishu. In the northwest, Somaliland has been operating as a separate state with its own institutions and currency since 1991, although it is still largely considered internationally to be part of Somalia. In the northeast, Puntland has broad autonomy, and the influence of the central authority varies across different areas. It seems to me this is the first thing the viewer must understand. The word Somalia does not describe one identical street, one security system, or one way of life. Mogadishu, Hargeisa, Bosaso, and a nomadic camp in the arid interior of the country can differ from each other more dramatically than a person opening a map for the first time might expect. Now let us move to Mogadishu. Morning here begins not only with the sound of cars and the call to prayer. Shops open, fruits, rice, spices, meat, and fish appear on the counters. Minibuses and three-wheeled motorized rickshaws travel along the streets. Cafes serve sweet spiced tea. On the shore of the Indian Ocean, the city receives bright sunlight and turquoise water, which hardly aligns with the familiar television image of gray military newsreels. But the most unexpected thing is not in the architecture, but in the method of payment. A World Bank report on Somalia's digital development noted that about 90% of Somali adults had a mobile phone, and approximately 73% used mobile money. These estimates appeared several years ago and should not be taken as an exact counter for the present day, yet they show the scale of the phenomenon. In a country where banking infrastructure long remained weak, the phone effectively turned into a wallet. You can buy tea, pay for a ride, send money to a relative, or settle a bill in a store without pulling out a wad of banknotes. This did not arise because Somalia was the first to build an ideal digital economy. Rather, people found a practical solution where the ordinary financial system could not cope. Communication and mobile transfers filled the void left by decades of instability. I believe that it is precisely such details that best break the stereotype. Modernity does not always arrive in the form of a glass skyscraper and a bank branch on every corner. Sometimes it looks like an old phone in in the hand of a merchant who receives payment for goods in a matter of seconds. Somalia may seem cut off from the world, but in some everyday technology, local residents have long been living by the logic of a cashless future. However, it is enough to lift your gaze from the phone screen to the gates, checkpoints, and armed guards to see the other side of the capital. Security in Mogadishu is distributed unevenly. There are bustling districts, restaurants, hotels, universities, and new buildings. There are fortified installations and roads where the risk of attack remains real. Life continues not after the danger has disappeared, but simultaneously with it. Why did Somalia reach such a state in the first place? The Encyclopedia Britannica reminds us that the north and south of the country were long governed by different colonial powers. The north came under British influence, the south under Italian influence. In 1960, the two territories united and formed the independent Somali Republic. On paper, the history of a unified country began. In practice, the state had to merge different administrative systems, interests, and regional elites. After the military coup of 1969, Mohammed Siad Barre came to power. His regime attempted to restructure society from above, simultaneously relying on a security apparatus and a balance between clans. The war with Ethiopia, economic difficulties, repression, and armed resistance gradually eroded the system. In 1991, the regime fell, but no stable national authority emerged in its place. A struggle between armed groups began, and state institutions effectively disappeared in many areas. The past is also visible in the appearance of cities. In the old quarters of Mogadishu, Arab and Persian trading traditions coexist with remnants of Italian architecture. Berbera in the north faces Yemen across the Gulf of Aden and has lived by maritime trade for centuries. Livestock arrives at the port from inland regions and is then sent to markets on the Arabian Peninsula. Therefore, the route from a nomadic encampment to a foreign buyer can pass through dozens of intermediaries, veterinary checks, a truck, a quarantine facility, and a vessel. Thus, another contrast emerges. A person may live in a portable dwelling and simultaneously depend on international prices, a decision by an importer in another country, and the operation of a modern port. The Somali nomadic economy is not outside the global world. It is embedded in it through livestock, remittances from relatives abroad, mobile communications, and sea routes. When an export market closes or transportation becomes more expensive, the impact is felt by a family far from the coast. This is an important turning point. The phrase "country of clans" often sounds like an accusation of backwardness. But when the court, the police, the bank, and the social services work unreliably or do not work at all, a person seeks a structure capable of protecting their family, property, and life. Such a structure becomes a kinship network. A clan can help find work, raise money after a misfortune, negotiate compensation, provide safety on the road, or act as a mediator in a dispute. At the same time, belonging to a clan can close doors, drag a person into a conflict, place collective decisions above personal ones, and leave weaker groups without an equal voice. Protection and dependence here grow from the same root. Alongside formal law, there exists customary law, known as zir. It regulates compensations, access to water and pastures, responsibility for harm caused, agreements between groups, and family matters. Decisions are traditionally discussed by elders. In conditions where the state court is far away or is not trusted, zir can provide a quick and understandable mechanism for resolution. But I would not romanticize this system. The fact that custom helps a community survive does not mean it is equally fair to everyone, especially when decisions are made by older men, and the consequences most heavily affect a woman, a child, or a person from a weaker lineage. And here we come to the custom mentioned in the title of our episode. Dumal is a form of marriage in which a widow can marry the brother or another close relative of her deceased husband. The word "can" is fundamentally important here, but it does not solve the entire problem. In one family, a woman might genuinely be offered such a union as an option. In another, consent becomes a formality because refusal means conflict with relatives, loss of support, or fear for her children and property. Why did this custom arise at all? Imagine a nomadic family for whom the herd, the well, agreements with neighbors, and help from relatives are a survival system. After the husband's death, a widow could lose the person who represented the household in negotiations and was responsible for access to resources. A new marriage within the same kinship group kept children close to the father's family, retained property within the lineage, and distributed responsibilities among familiar people. In theory, this looks like a social safety net for a society without pensions, child support system, or a developed system of benefits. But in real life, a safety net can turn into control. In a country study by the United Nations Population Fund, UNFPA, Dumaal is directly mentioned among customary law practices that can contradict human rights and gender equality. That is, an international source does not describe the tradition as harmless exotica. Another point is also important. This custom cannot be attributed to every Somali family. It is known, but its prevalence varies depending on the region, way of life, generation, and specific community. In cities with educated youth, attitudes toward family decisions are changing. Even within the traditional environment, relatives may limit themselves to material support of the widow and children without marriage. My opinion here is unequivocal. Support for the family after the husband's death is necessary, but marriage makes sense only with the free consent of two adults. If a woman agrees out of fear of losing her children, housing, or protection, the word tradition does not make such a decision just. A custom can be explained by historical conditions, but an explanation must not turn into a justification of coercion. That is precisely why the clickbait phrase, "widows marry the deceased brother," simultaneously catches attention and deceives. It creates the impression of a universal automatic rule. In reality, we are faced with a controversial practice inside a complex system of mutual obligations. For one woman, it could mean preservation of support. For another, loss of choice. These two stories cannot be merged into one. If you value such journeys without a sugary postcard and without cheap humiliation of another culture, subscribe to the channel. We verify not only the striking fact, but also the price that real people pay for it. And next, there will be another symbol of Somalia, without which it is impossible to understand either the family or the wealth or the road itself through this country. This is the camel. In Somali culture, it is not just an animal in a beautiful shot. The camel provides milk, meat, the ability to transport loads, and the capacity to endure long journeys. A herd can be savings, insurance, and a sign of status. Its size affects a family's ability to withstand drought, to arrange a favorable marriage, or to help relatives. In markets like Burao, trade begins with a careful examination of the animal. They assess age, health, body build, and ability to produce offspring. The price depends not only on appearance, but also on the season, availability of water, demand from exporters, and trust between seller and buyer. Where a formal contract is not always convenient, a person's reputation becomes part of the deal. The nomadic way of life may look like freedom from the outside. A family packs up its portable dwelling and moves after the rains. But this is freedom subordinated to harsh necessity. The pasture has been exhausted. One must move. The well has dried up. The route changes. An animal falls ill. The food supply of the whole family is threatened. One makes the house light, not for the sake of romance, but because a heavy house cannot be carried to the next source of water. In the June 2026 Humanitarian Review, the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, OCHA, wrote that successive blows, severe drought, floods, ongoing conflict, and reduction of aid funding have exhausted families' ability to cope with the crisis. This formulation is important. Somalia suffers not from a single eternal drought. Sometimes after a dry period come destructive floods, washing away roads and settlements, but they do not create a sustainable supply of water where it is needed. It seems to me the most terrible frame here is not necessarily dramatic. It is a family that looks at the herd and decides which animal to sell now in order to buy food, even though that very animal could have fed them later. A disaster turns property that had saved generations into a final expendable reserve. After several such decisions, a person no longer has anything with which to recover even when the rains return. And now, let us turn back to the sea. In the CIA reference book, the World Factbook, the length of Somalia's coastline is given as approximately 3,333 kilometers. This is the longest coastline of mainland Africa. There are beaches, fishing settlements, ports, coral areas, and waters through which a huge flow of international vessels passes. Then why did the sea not make the country rich? It does indeed provide fish and trade opportunities, but a sustainable economy requires protected waters, ports, cold chains, roads, investment, and rules that people trust. When the state weakened, coastal communities faced illegal fishing by foreign vessels, lack of work, and the absence of an effective coast guard. On this basis, groups emerged that called themselves defenders of the coast. Very quickly, protection turned into a business of seizing people and ships. Pirates went out in small boats, approached a merchant ship, boarded it, and took it to the coast. The main goal was usually a ransom, but cinema created a deceptive image, as if a few armed men divided the money. A joint report by the World Bank, the UN, and Interpol, Pirate Trails, estimated the amounts of claimed ransoms for pirate attacks off the Horn of Africa from April 2005 to December 2012 at $339 to $413 million. Most of the money did not remain with ordinary participants. Financiers of the operations, organizers, intermediaries, suppliers of fuel, weapons, and information received their shares. A whole shadow chain arose around the seizure. The local economy could temporarily feel an influx of cash, but the price included violence, hostages, growth of crime, higher costs of maritime trade, and dependence on criminal money. I do not support the romanticized image of poor fishermen who were simply defending their sea. Economic reasons help to understand why piracy gained a foothold, but they do not negate the responsibility for the kidnapping of human beings. Explaining a crime is not the same as justifying it. Otherwise, we cease to see the sailors who spent months as hostages, far away from their families. International maritime patrols, armed security guards on board ships, changes in routes and more effective security measures have sharply reduced the scale of seizures compared with the peak. But the word disappeared would also be too strong. The risks can return when control weakens or when regional tension increases. Therefore, the old image of a pirate on a boat continues to influence the cost of insurance, the decisions made by carriers, and the reputation of the entire country. Somalia has a history that is far more ancient than the pirate reports. For centuries, the ports on this coast connected the interior regions of Africa with Arabia, Persia, and India. From here were exported livestock, aromatic resins, and other goods, while here arrived textiles, metals, spices, and new ideas. Islam spread along the trade routes, and the coastal cities became a part of the world of the Indian Ocean long before the European colonial partition. Traces of an even earlier past are preserved in the vicinity of Hargeisa. In the rock shelters of Las Gil, one can see images of people, animals, and especially the brightly decorated cattle. In the materials of UNESCO's Nairobi office, mention is made of a survey of Las Gil, together with other monuments of the rock art of Somaliland. These drawings are of importance not only as a rare point of interest. They show how long ago the life of people here was bound up with herds, with water, and with seasonal movement. Look at this contrast. A modern person transfers money through a telephone, passes through a checkpoint, and within a few hours may find himself in front of images of cattle, which were left by ancient herders. Technology has changed radically, but the value of livestock, of kinship, and of access to water continues to affect people's lives. For me, this is the central image of Somalia. The new does not erase the old, but is layered on top of it. Everyday culture as well is structured not only around survival. Somali poetry was transmitted by word of mouth for centuries and helped to preserve memory, to argue, to glorify one's family, or to mock an opponent. At the table, one can see rice with meat and spices, flatbreads, pasta, the legacy of the Italian period, and bananas, which are not infrequently eaten together with the main course. Tea is usually made very sweet, with the addition of cardamom, cinnamon, or other spices. The family meal in this story is more significant than it appears to be. Several people share one large dish, while the conversation goes on at the same time about children, the road, prices, the health of animals, and news from relatives who are abroad. The Somali diaspora is scattered throughout Africa, Europe, North America, and the countries of the Persian Gulf. Remittances sent from abroad help to pay for food, education, medical treatment, and recovery after drought. For many households, the international economy enters not through a stock exchange screen, but via a message. The money has arrived on the telephone. But dependence on relatives also has a double side to it. It provides a lifeline where state assistance is unavailable, and at the same time it reinforces the expectation that a person is obliged to submit to the decision made by the family. The one who pays for housing, a wedding, or treatment may take the view that he has acquired the right to influence the choice made by another person. This is precisely why the discussion of dumal cannot be separated from money. Free consent is difficult to verify if a refusal is capable of leaving a woman without an income and without support for her children. Such details are necessary because an endless narrative that only speaks of hunger and war also distorts the country. People celebrate weddings, argue about prices, send their children off to study, listen to music, fall in love, and build businesses. Danger can be real, but it does not cancel out ordinary life. A person is able to laugh in a city where armed guards are standing nearby. One thing does not prove the falsity of the other, but is it possible to see all of this for oneself? As of the date of our verification, August 10th, 2026, the answer has to be worded with the utmost caution. The British Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the FCDO, advises against any travel to almost the entire territory of Somalia, including a large part of Somaliland. And for some areas of Somaliland, it recommends only trips that are strictly essential. The reasons are the terrorist threat, the continuing violence, and the extremely limited consular assistance. That is why I will not repeat from the reference the attractive prices for hotels, apartments, and excursions. Without a precise date, district, and without the level of security and the conditions, such figures create a false sense of an ordinary budget trip. In Mogadishu, the accommodation of a foreigner may include a protected hotel, arranged transport, escort, and routes, the cost of which is not comparable to the rental of local housing. Even Hargeisa, which tourist accounts often depict as being calmer, does not automatically turn into a safe destination. The political situation is changing, and international recognition of Somaliland remains limited, and assistance for a foreigner in a crisis may be minimal. Watching a documentary and buying a ticket are completely different levels of risk. I believe it is right to speak about the beauty of Somalia without selling the viewer an illusion of safety. White beaches, ancient rock art, markets, and the ocean truly exist. The threats are real as well. Respect for a country lies not in hiding one of these sides, but in holding both within a single frame. Now let us return to the widow with whom our story began. Why does the family offer her a relative of her deceased husband? Because in a society that has experienced the collapse of institutions, droughts, conflicts, and constant displacement, the clan long remained the primary system of insurance. The clan preserved children, property, livestock, and access to support. Dumal was not born from a desire to create a shocking custom for a foreign camera, but from an attempt to keep the family from falling apart. But the world is changing. Mobile money allows a woman to receive remittances on her own. Education provides other means of earning a living. City life weakens some of the old dependencies. Law and public discussion are gradually expanding the space for personal choice. A tradition that was once considered a means of protection is now increasingly measured against the question of consent. And here is our final answer. Dumal may be offered as support, but it ceases to be support the very moment a woman has no real right to refuse. One cannot declare the entire Somali people hostage to a single custom